Listen up, ladies. Jumping into a cold tub may not always be the best idea. A woman's menstrual cycle plays a major role on how cold affects her. Women's bodies are going to respond differently to cold when there are hormonal fluctuations. For example, during a woman's luteal phase, her progesterone is high. So her core body temperature is naturally a bit higher, and some research is suggesting that women may feel colder faster in this phase. On the other hand, in the first half of the cycle, when estrogen is higher, women might actually get a slightly bigger metabolic boost from cold exposure. What does that mean is that based on a woman's cycle, her tolerance and benefit from cold may vary throughout the month. So ladies, if you love jumping in the cold tub, first and foremost, listen to your body. The majority of the research around cold water immersion is in men. I would advise avoiding jumping in a cold tub during menstruation and then taking advantage of feeling stronger mid-cycle and jumping in. But every woman is different. So again, listen to your body. And if you notice any changes in your cycle after doing cold exposure, dial it back, talk to your doctor. Thank you for joining this episode of Heal Thyself. To support the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. It gives us the opportunity to really expand this knowledge to people who need it most, and you can do your part by just sharing the love. Again, thank you for listening. I'm forever grateful, and I love you all. Let's get started. So why are people suddenly obsessed with ice baths and cold plunges? You know, you see TikTok videos, you hear about celebs and their wellness routines. Huberman was talking about it last year. So cold water immersion has become a hot trend. And in this podcast, we're going to dive deep into what happens to your body in cold water. What are the science-backed benefits, the risks, and caveats, especially for women? We don't talk about that enough, and how to try it safely if you choose to do it. By the end of this, you're going to have a clear science-backed understanding of how cold exposure works and whether it is going to be right for you to do. We're going to cover the rise of cold water immersion and pop culture, the physiological mechanisms that really like kick in when you're in the cold plunge, right? We're going to talk about things like muscle recovery, mood enhancement, why cold exposure isn't really for everyone. And this is the thing that we are really missing. A lot of this research is on men. So we don't necessarily know how cold water is going to affect women, their hormones, pregnancy. Plus, we're really going to get tips on how to get started safely. So let's get into this. Why is cold water immersion trending? Well, it's surged in popularity worldwide, right? We have pictures on Instagram with group ice events, like the ice bath events. We have common wellness challenges that many people do. We see athletes, but they've been doing it for decades though. Athletes have been doing it for a while. But now we got celebrities joining in, more high profile athletes, wellness bloggers on Instagram, right? They're all doing their cold tubs and cold exposure, right? We have celebrities even doing cameos in their home and they have their cold tub setups. So it's surged in popularity, it's viral, but we really want to look into this. It's not something new. Cultures have been doing this for a very long time, right? And cold bathing has been around for centuries. In Scandinavia, they did winter swims, they did sauna, ice routines, the Japanese Masoji rituals, same thing, exposing yourself to cold. So it's been around for a while, even though it feels like it's buzzing now. But what's different than the past is that now women are embracing this cold exposure in larger numbers. I remember just seeing an Instagram post the other day, and there was an event right here on the parking lot of a coffee shop, and they had ice tubs filled up, and there were so many women in it, right? So many women are trying it as really like the form of empowerment, of wellness, sharing their stories, increasing your energy, your mood, they feel good. Maybe relief from menstrual discomfort, maybe, let's see, we're gonna talk about it. But in short, really, we're seeing this. Cold immersion has gone mainstream, right? But is that a good thing? We really wanna talk about if this trend is for everyone. Let's talk about something that is crucial for our health, but often overlooked. It is hydration. And I'm not talking about just drinking water. I'm talking about getting electrolytes. Sometimes water doesn't even hydrate you, right? You need electrolytes. I love LMNT. I especially love their brand new LMNT sparkling drink that I keep in my fridge. I use it after every sauna session. And what really sets LMNT apart is their science-based formula. They actually provide 2 to 3 times more sodium than the typical recommendation, plus the perfect balance of potassium and magnesium. And they do it without any sugar, any artificial ingredients, none of that nasty stuff, right? And they have their 16-ounce sparkling cans. And this is the on-the-go hydration. They have different flavors. You put it in the fridge, and when you need something cold to really hit, whoa, I'm telling you right now, you're going to love it. Whether you're an athlete or just on a low carb diet, or you want to avoid headaches, brain fog coming from electrolyte imbalance, LMNT is simple, it's easy to use, it's tasty. You get a free sample pack with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/DRG. That is DRINKLMNT.com/DRG. You know, I've been thinking about my evening routines lately, and what I notice is that I really had a lot of the practices down, you know, the resting my body, reading a book, but I wanted something to help complement my sleep. And that's when I discovered Cornbread Hemp's THC gummies. Now, a lot of you know about THC gummies, but a lot of THC gummies are not pure and clean and high quality. What I love about these gummies is that they're the real deal. America's only USDA organic THC gummies made with a perfect 1-to-1 ratio of THC and CBD, but the best part is you ain't gonna have no hangover. It's pure relaxation, drifting off to sleep. And really the thing that impressed me is that they're 100% legal, made with no synthetic ingredients, clean, organic goodness that is gonna help you find your calm. If you're ready to upgrade your relaxation game right now, Heal Thyself listeners, you can save 30% on your first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/DRG and use the code DRG at checkout. That is cornbreadhemp.com/DRG. So what happens in your body when you get cold? When we step back and think about cold water, right? Whether it's a ice bath or a cold shower, it triggers an overall shock response. For those of you who've done it, we feel that shock response immediately. It's that moment where you grasp and your breathing rate spikes and your body goes into that boom, cold shock. Your heart rate starts jumping. Your blood vessels start pumping, right? Your skin is starting to constrict. You can start getting pale. Well, this is your body's own natural fight or flight reaction. It's amazing to see the body in action, right? Really adapting to the sudden cold exposure. And this is the ancient survival mechanism that we've had forever, and it's kicking in. And internally, your nervous system is flooding your body with stress hormones, elevating norepinephrine, right? The hormone that is related to the adrenaline, and it shoots up, and you have dopamine shoot up, right? This is a neurotransmitter, remember, for motivation, mood. And in one physiology study, it found that immersing yourself in 14 degrees Celsius water caused a 530% surge in epinephrine and a 250% increase in dopamine, right? So we know that adrenaline, dopamine rise up. And the chemical rush is why many people feel actually alert and euphoric and energized right after they take that dip. The brain is literally getting out of the bath with adrenaline all the way up. It's the same thing as if we're seeing like a tiger. Our adrenaline shoots up, we're focused, our brain feels clear because we have to make really fast decisions, right? But at the same time, your metabolism is kicking into high gear and it's preventing your core temperature from just dropping. So your body starts to burn fuel. It begins to generate heat. You're starting to shiver, right? In that same study that I just mentioned about adrenaline and dopamine, we also see that cold immersion boosts your metabolic rate by roughly 350%. That's dramatic. And we see a temporary increase in calorie burn as your body begins to warm, right? When you're coming out, it's warming up. So your metabolic fire is heating up. Vascular constriction is helping preserve heat in your vital organs, right? So you don't go into shock and die. And in cold water, your body's really working hard to keep you alive. That's the thing. So when we have controlled doses, you can actually train your system to become more resilient. But then why do people voluntarily do this, right? Because it's painful. It's not a fun thing, right? You've done it before. What else does the science say? Well, research indicates that a number of potential benefits are going to come the more you do this cold water immersion. And you may notice this for yourself, right? So when we break it down, we know in the research, and I mentioned the dopamine, I mentioned the adrenaline, I mentioned the metabolic rate, but also it helps with muscle recovery. It helps reduce inflammation. So, you know, you've seen athletes sit in ice baths after a game. It's because the cold is going to help induce a reduction in the inflammation, the muscle soreness, right? Cold water immersion after a really intense, like a basketball game, can decrease those markers of muscle damage or lessen the delayed onset of muscle soreness. So by constricting these blood vessels and actually reducing the temperature, the cold may blunt that inflammation that happens in the muscles. And we see that in multiple studies. And that's why athletes always use it for better performance and getting back to the court or the field or wherever. So that's a benefit. Mental clarity, mental boost. Great. How many times have you gone into a cold shower and then say, oh my God, that woke me up. That was like a cup of coffee. Yeah. So cold immersion is going to rush endorphins and neurotransmitters like dopamine that actually leave you feeling really clear-headed. You feel upbeat. It's the mood enhancer. And research found that in these short little spurts, you can significantly improve the mood of participants, and they feel more inspired and they feel less distressed after taking that plunge. And that's really due to the spike in adrenaline and dopamine. Doing this regularly may also train your stress response. Some experts, we're still like in the middle, are suggesting that it actually can lower your baseline cortisol levels, right? So over time, you'll be more resilient to everyday stress. Now, many women who practice cold plunging or immersion say that it's really helpful for their mental health. And again, they're feeling uplifted, focused, calm, all those wonderful things. We know that cold exposure, increasing that internal fire, especially when you come out, is going to increase the brown fat activity. That's a good thing, right? In the National Institute of Health, there was a study that found after a month of sleeping in mildly cool temperatures, about 66 degrees Fahrenheit, men had a 42% increase in brown fat volume and higher metabolic activity. So the more active your brown fat means that your body uses more calories to keep you warm, right? So, and in another study, we see that people with active brown fat burn 15% more calories during cold exposure. So if this brown fat is active and we have more brown fat, it's better metabolically. Now, cold exposure alone is not going to be the thing for weight loss though. You can't depend on, I'm going to do cold tubs and it's going to be enough metabolism boost to burn calories. It's going to be modest, right? It's not the thing to lean on. The other things that I just mentioned are, but it will nudge your body just a bit more, right? To start consuming this energy, burning fat just a little bit, but really it's that exercise that's going to make a bigger difference, right? So what about your immune system? Well, this one's interesting. One of my first ever posts on Instagram was on cold exposure in the immune system. So can cold showers really make you feel less sick? Well, yeah, they might, right? An older randomized controlled trial in the Netherlands found that people who took daily hot to cold showers, ending with 30 to 90 seconds of cold water, had a 29% reduction in self-reported sick days from work, right? And we learned this in school maybe a year or two in, and I remember doing it every single day when I was in school. And I never really got sick during school. The two things that I would do every day is juice, and I would do cold water, contrast hydrotherapy, hot to cold in my shower. I didn't need a cold tub or anything, and it was really, really helpful. And it's something that's been with me for a long time. So interestingly, the folks didn't get sick less per se, but they actually felt more resilient and strong enough to keep working, right? So it's like exposure to this cold gives you this resiliency and stimulates your immune system. You bring better circulation to the body. So anecdotally, we hear that from a lot of cold plungers. They swear they catch fewer colds, right? But at minimum, you're going to get a really nice invigorating effect that is going to help you focus, and you're going to feel better mentally because your dopamine's much higher and your adrenaline is. Now, the benefits sound great, but cold water immersion is not for everyone. Right? They vary. Think about us. We're human beings. We vary. We're individuals. We have our own unique imprint. So much of the research is still emerging. Much of the research is still just in men. And so some of the benefits, like the immune boost or weight loss, we're not 100% ironclad on, right? This is more subjective, weaker studies. There's still enough evidence to suggest, yes, cold water immersion can be a positive wellness tool if you use it appropriately. But before you go ahead and look up on the internet nearest ice bath to me, let's take a minute about who should be doing this and who shouldn't, okay? It's not for everyone, as I mentioned. Cold water immersion is a potent stressor to the body, okay? Remember that. The mechanism, when they're in there, adrenaline goes high. Your body is stimulated. It's in survival mode. It's a potent stressor to the body because the body's saying, oh, I may die every single day or every single time you do it, which means that there are risks and it's not going to be suitable for everyone. So it's important that you know what are the limitations. So here are some reasons why cold exposure might do more harm than good for certain people. Don't do cold tubs if your nervous system is dysregulated. Remember, cold tub is a potent stressor to the system. So if your nervous system is constantly dysregulated and you're in a chronic stressful state, a cold tub may be way too much for your system. Listen up, ladies. Jumping into a cold tub may not always be the best idea. A woman's menstrual cycle plays a major role on how cold affects her. Women's bodies are going to respond differently to cold when there are hormonal fluctuations. For example, when a woman is in her luteal phase, when progesterone is high, her core body temperature is going to naturally be a bit higher. And so some research is showing that women may feel colder faster in this phase. For example, during a woman's luteal phase, her progesterone is high. So her core body temperature is naturally a bit higher, and some research is suggesting that women may feel colder faster in this phase. On the other hand, in the first half of the cycle, when estrogen is higher, women might actually get a slightly bigger metabolic boost from cold exposure. What does that mean is that based on a woman's cycle, her tolerance and benefit from cold may vary throughout the month. So ladies, if you love jumping in the cold tub, first and foremost, listen to your body. The majority of the research around cold water immersion is in men. I would advise avoiding jumping in a cold tub during menstruation and then taking advantage of feeling stronger mid-cycle and jumping in. But every woman is different. So again, listen to your body. And if you notice any changes in your cycle after doing cold exposure, dial it back, talk to your doctor. Who else shouldn't do cold exposure? Women who are pregnant. Pregnant women should be very cautious about cold exposure. There's not a lot of direct research on pregnancy and deliberate cold exposure, but we do know that pregnancy is already going to shift your circulation. It's going to shift your stress response, right? So while some people assume, yeah, hot tubs may be bad, the same may be for cold tubs. So there's no real evidence that the extreme cold is beneficial or even safe during pregnancy. So it's better to be smart about it and just avoid it. There's no reason to do it. Don't do cold exposure if you have an underlying heart or blood pressure issue. The sudden spike in blood pressure can be detrimental to the system. Be wary on cold immersion if you have asthma or respiratory issues, knowing that cold air and water can provoke a bronchospasm in the lungs, and the initial hyperventilation can lead to breathing issues. Other people who should avoid cold plunges are those who have Raynaud's, neuropathy, any nerve issues. So let's move further. When is cold exposure going to do more harm than good? So even if you're not in one of the categories that I just mentioned, right, the contraindication categories, there are times when cold immersion actually isn't wise at all, right? One, you don't want to use it as a substitute for medical care, obviously. If you're severely sick or you have an infection, don't do that instead of seeing a doctor, right? And saying you're just boosting your immunity. Don't go to extremes. Don't stay there too long. I'm going to talk a little bit about Wim Hof breathing and how that can be problematic. If you dread cold exposure or cause you anxiety, you might want to balance your nervous system before you even do that. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but if it's going to be too much and you're, like I mentioned, if you're already in a stressful state, chronic dysregulation of your nervous system, holding on to deep emotional repression, it's the same thing as overworking out or doing a really intense class. The hormetic benefit of a stress that is small and manageable can be too much for you. So really focus on balancing your nervous system first. Take a step back before jumping in, because if your nervous system's dysregulated and you're jumping in a cold tub, you're doing more harm than good. Look at cold tubs like a strenuous activity. If your body's exhausted and dysregulated, why would you go to a HIIT class, right? So how do you do it safely? How do you do it effectively? If you are intrigued with cold tubs, cold water immersion, if you haven't started, if you started but kind of like want to reassess if it's for you, diving headfirst into a cold tub without any prep is not going to be a smart thing. You want to start small. I always say this, start with your shower. I've been saying this since 2013. You don't need a giant ice barrel. You don't need a giant ice chest, a tub. It's really easy to start with your shower. And this is something that I've been doing since 2011. You take a hot shower, you go 3 minutes on, and then you go to cold, right? To as cold as you can tolerate, and you do 30 seconds. Go back to hot, 2 to 3 minutes. Again, back to cold for 30 seconds, making sure you're breathing calmly, grounding yourself, getting used to it. Go back to hot for 3 minutes, and then you go for your last part of the cycle, back to 30 seconds. That's such an easy at-home exercise where you are getting all the benefits of jumping into a cold tub. That contrast is so helpful for your system, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your immune system. So starting with cold shower is an easy way. Now, breathing techniques is really important. There's the initial gasp reflex when you go in, right? Now, you want to train yourself to control your breathing. That's a really potent part of this practice. But you don't want to go into doing any of these fancy breath works, especially Wim Hof. Ladies and gentlemen, do not do Wim Hof breathing in a cold tub. This style of breathing can make you pass out in a cold tub and you can die. There have been reports of this. If you're going to do it way before you jump in. Do not do Wim Hof breathing in a cold tub. When you get into a cold tub, regulate your breathing naturally. Don't do any breathwork practices in a cold tub. That is crazy. And if there was any moment that Wim Hof said to do the breathing in a cold tub, then shame on you, Wim Hof. So when you get in a cold plunge, you're gonna hyperventilate. The only thing you want to do is naturally catch your breath, naturally ground yourself, and naturally come back to a state of your own regulated breathing, even if it's faster than normal. It's okay. Learn how to naturally regulate your breathing and your nervous system when you come into a cold tub. You want to make sure you find the right time and temperature, right? You don't actually need ice cold water to get the benefits. Many protocols are suggesting water around 50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And that's enough to elicit positive effects. You don't need to go down to 30. That's crazy. As a beginner, you might even do 60 and that's plenty chilly. You will get benefits. So start with short durations, even if it's a minute. Go in, feel it, regulate your breathing, and then come out. The common recommendation is aiming for 2 to 3 minutes up to about 5 minutes. But I know someone who stayed in for 5 minutes and all their limbs went numb. Don't go too crazy. It's not a matter of the longer the better, right? If you aim for 2-3 minute intervals at a time and you do it consistently for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, then great. But you don't need to do 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 5 minutes. No one is counting. No one's giving you a medal for this. And if you're spending more than 10 minutes in cold water, that's problematic. You're increasing your risk of hypothermia. Don't be stupid. A good rule of thumb is come out of the water while you still have control of your body before shivering or before it becomes really intense. You can always do another short cycle if you want, but you don't want to come out and your whole body's shivering. You've been there. That means your body's been there way too long, right? And it's not essential to do every day. Some research says, yes, do it frequently, but a few times a week, 2 to 3 minute intervals is more than enough. Pay attention to your body's recovery. If you're using a cold tub and you feel great, your dopamine is high, your adrenaline is high, you have all this energy and you're crashing in the middle of the day and not realizing that maybe you shouldn't be doing the cold tub, that's a problem. A middle of the day crash from a cold tub in the morning is indicative that your nervous system can't take it. So if this is happening to you after doing a cold tub, take a step back. You don't need to be doing it every day. You don't need to be doing it as long. You can do a contrast immersion in the shower, 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold. Do it 3 times and then cold. That's just as good as being in a cold tub. Yeah, I really needed to say that because there's a lot of people who get really energized and then not realize that they're crashing in the middle of the day or at the end of the day and not knowing that it was a cold tub. Have a nice warm-up plan, right? When you come out, have some warm clothes, some towels, whatever's needed, a robe, do some jumping jacks, move your body, right? But don't jump into a hot tub immediately after or a hot shower immediately after. You give your body a moment to actually rebalance itself. And that's one of the biggest mistakes. People go extreme too fast. For instance, they're getting 100 pounds of ice and they're submerging themselves on day one for 10 minutes, and it's likely too much. So just respect your limits, right? Shivering is too much. You know, like if you're a little cold, then great. But like if you're shivering and it's not going away for a while, you're doing the most. Take a minute, step back, right? And go small, go short, listen to your body. If you're a beginner, don't dunk your head underwater. Keeping your head above is actually going to reduce the risk of anything like fainting. And there is a psychological factor, right? There's a saying that in cold water immersion people that it's 90% mental. And it's true, right? The act of going into freezing cold water is mental. It's a physical and mental challenge. And overcoming that primal urge to just jump out is really a testament to how strong your mental health can be, or your mental fortitude. And it's wonderful. I can see how many people find this empowering. It's a tangible way to come out stronger. It teaches you to stay calm under stress when you're in cold and every nerve is screaming, get out, right? It really helps you learn how to endure discomfort, which is really like a microcosm of life, right? Controlling your breathing, how to regulate your stress, another microcosm of life. I handle this. I do a cold tub every other day, every day. I can do a lot more in my life. So I'm all for that. And it keeps you present, right? There's a spiritual aspect. You can't help but be present because you're not thinking about your to-do list. You are fully immersed and fully with grounding yourself and regulating yourself. Another important practice for life. You get the mood boost, you feel good, dopamine is out, endorphins is out, you feel energized, you feel happy, your stress is down, your anxiety is down. Like, I'm all for that. You just got to make sure you're doing it in a safe way. And again, it might not be for you, and that's okay. There are other options. Love the community aspect, polar plunges, ice tubs, coffee events with ice tubs. Great. Camaraderie, amazing. I want more people to do that. I want more people to connect. I want more people to have things in common. It's beautiful, right? And seeing people in their own, like, oh, I got to get through this, is really a potent thing to see overall. So look, my final conclusion, we've covered a lot, right? We have the thrill of the trend, the science of really what's behind this, the benefits. We have faster recovery, happier mood, better metabolism, potentially better immune changes, stronger immune system, the different caveats, right? Especially for women, when you're on your cycle, maybe there's not days in the cycle that are smart to go into the cold tub, right? So is it right for you? You really got to sense into it, right? If you're a woman out there, really sense into how you feel in your body. Do you really want to challenge yourself? Are you in your cycle where you feel like doing a HIIT workout class? And great, a cold might be good for you that time. But if you're really in your cycle and you can't, and you want to just be in bed and you just want to be on the couch and just chilling, that's fine too. And the cold might not be for you. If your nervous system is dysregulated, the cold might not be for you. And I mentioned all the contraindications. Definitely the cold is not for you. So let's be smart about things and start with the shower. The shower can play a major role. And if you're curious about it, use the shower. Let your shower be your teacher, right? You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on everything. You could do that contrast hydrotherapy and then build up to jumping in and see if it's for you. Listen to your body. If you're crashing in the middle of the day, listen to your body. The goal of cold immersion, as any wellness tool, is to improve your well-being, but it's not supposed to add stress to your life. A little bit of stress, good. Exercise, a little bit of stress, good. But if it's a stressful part of your life and your body's responding unfavorably, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. How is your body responding to cold tubs? Tune into your body. How is it responding? Use it wisely. Use it as a tool. Yes, it'll strengthen mental resilience and inner calm and presence. There's a spiritual element and there's a community tool. But remember, it's all about you. Tune into your body first. Listen to the contraindications and talk to your doctor if you want to start doing this regularly. See if it's a really good deal for you. As always, stay safe. Stay curious in this world. Listen to your body. Listen to science. And for those of you who feel to it, have fun jumping in the cold. I love you for that. Thank you so much for listening to Heal Thyself. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't on the show yet. It helps so much. Go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on Apple. Just help us grow the show. Thank you for all the love, taking the time out of your day and being present with us. Thank you.